right, we are back on the record for the last case of the day. All 20-something of them. So, may we please have staff report?
Oh, waiting on that. All right, this is case SE 2408065. The applicant is Robert Ziegenfuss for Rex Groves RV Park. It's in the A1 zoning district with the future land use of RS 1 to 5, which is rural settlement 1 to 5. It's located on Rex Drive in District 1 on an 84.6 acre site. And the request is a special exception in variances in the A1 zoning district as follows. So the special exception is to allow an RV park with 249 campsites in the A1 district. And the variances are to allow accessory buildings associated with the campsite to be closer than the code required 75 feet. There's an instance of 43 feet, 51 feet, and 30 feet. So the special exception is for the overall use, and the variances are related to the layout of the site as it relates to the use. So there's the location of the property, west side of Rex Drive, right on the Lake County line. Property zoned A1. It's also located in the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement. It's surrounded by properties that are also zoned A1. As you get into PDs down there to the south, that's Horizon West, and then Lake County to the west. So overall aerial, you can see the site and what's around it. Just an enhanced aerial. You can see the property is kind of a tree forest in the back, a timber tract, and in the front is an orange grove. And then this is the overall site plan for the RV park. So in the back part, that's currently the timber area. They're proposing to put most of the campsites in the rear half, and a variety of the amenities are kind of right in the middle, leaving most of the front untouched, but for a few amenities. So the campsites are what you see there on the west side, and then there's a variety of amenity buildings, which we'll go over. This is just kind of the front part of the site plan enhanced, and then the rear part, and then you can see those are where the variances are. So there's restroom amenity buildings, which are restroom laundry buildings for the proposed campers. Those are required to be 75 feet from campsites, and then in these instances, they're closer than that. There's a landscape plan, so in addition to some of the existing landscaping, also proposing to plant trees as required by code all around the perimeter. These are some of the elevations of some of the amenity buildings. So there's a registration building, a clubhouse building, a museum building, some of the an event barn, and there's some general just bathroom buildings, maintenance sheds. So these are some site photos. So this is from Rex Grove looking west. You can see the orange groves there in the front, and then the tree line is the timber tract. That's where the campsites are proposed to be. This is looking down Rex Drive, so the proposed RV park would be on the left side. And this is looking down Rex Drive facing south, so RV park would be on the right in this instance. This is kind of from the middle of the site, so this is where the tree lines kind of start, and this is looking north. So to the north is the adjacent landfill. And this is kind of from the northern edge. So this is the side of the property, but it's kind of the northern boundary. The fence is more or less the property line at the edge of the tree line. And this is the south property line, so the other side. This side abuts a county rib site, which is kind of a county water management property. You can see in the aerial, kind of looks like these big sand pits where water treatment's done. And that's looking to the west. This is at the rear of the property, so that's looking into Lake County. Wasn't 100% sure what it was. It appeared to be potentially a subdivision, but some sort of grading going on. This is looking directly north, so that fence is more or less the rear property line of the property. Lake County is on the other side of that fence, looking north at the rear of the property. So previous BZA approvals, nothing specific to an RV park, but some other special exceptions that have been applied for nearby in the rural settlement. In 2009, there was a denial for a church on Elp Street. Fairly recently, there was a denial for a church in 2002, just kind of on the other side of Rex Drive. And there's a special exception for a landfill that dates back to the 90s and has been expanded over the years on the abutting north parcel. So the property is located in Lake Avalon Rural Settlement, and the property currently has an agricultural classification from the property appraiser, which I'll get into in a second. Site's on 84 acres, again, front half's an orange grove, rear half's a timber tract. And they're proposing an RV park campground with 249 campsites. And the amenities include a clubhouse with a pool, an event barn, a museum and discovery center, a farm core area, and then the supporting bathroom facilities. The campsite and most of the amenities are all in the rear half. And RV parks require a special exception in the A1 district, and they have a specific code that you have to follow. That code's where it requires a 75-foot setback that they're asking for the variance for. So code requires the 75-foot setback, and that's where the variance comes in. So RV parks are non-residential use. They're intended for short-term stays. They're like a transient use. The code doesn't let you stay there any longer than 6 months, so you couldn't live there per se. And because the property has an agricultural classification from the property appraiser, and it's used for bona fide agricultural use, there are certain uses that the county can't regulate. They're just outright permitted based on state statutes. The state statute has rules on agritourism and just general bona fide ag uses. So the event barn, the museum/discovery center, and the farm core area, those are outright permitted uses under the state statute. They're exempt from complying with the zoning code permits because they qualify as agritourism activities. However, the RV park itself, so the campground where the RVs park, all of that, is not considered agritourism, and it does require a special exception. So there are some things they are absolutely entitled to do based on state statute. The RV park is not one of those agritourism uses, do need the special exception for it. Just as a general, there are some specific comprehensive plan policies for rural settlements that are different than other places in the county. So the A1 zoning district is only consistent with the RS 1-5 future land use if the use is permitted in both the A1 district, either by right or by special exception, and then also permitted in all districts common to rural settlements. So in addition to the agricultural zoning districts, A1, A2, there's also the RCE districts, which you can see there. So a use has to be either outright permitted in those districts or permitted by special exception to be considered consistent. So an RV park is not permitted in the RCE districts, only the A1 district and the A2 district. Planning staff also noted that the proposed development is inconsistent with Lake Avalon rural settlement policies, which state that the scale, intensity, and types of commercial and office uses must be compatible with the existing rural development pattern of Lake Avalon area. County transportation planning, there was a traffic study required to be submitted. They did review it, determined that it would create 884 new daily trips, 43 AM peak and 67 PM peak. There are 3 roads that would be under the adopted level of service, and they're listed on the screen there. And as a result, as part of the development, they would participate in a proportionate share through the CL process when they develop. We had a community meeting for this one on July 17th. There was about 90 people in attendance. In general, the people spoke negatively about it. There were a lot of concerns about traffic, general concerns about rural settlement, and mainly about traffic noise and just kind of the questions about how it would operate and things like that. At the community meeting, the applicant was proposing it was 277 campsites, and then after the community meeting, they reduced it down to 249. So public feedback. So staff, we mailed out about 308 notices. So yesterday I emailed you the ones I had received up until yesterday. So there was about 58 against and 12 for, and those came from the traditional public notices. But as you'll see on the screen, we have received throughout today and yesterday about 300 correspondence in opposition. Those are mainly coming through on the county calendar. There's a way you can interact and say if you're in support or opposition. Gotten about 300 or so, maybe more, of those in opposition. A lot of those are coming from the Horizon West area, just based on the addresses provided. But as far as the public comment received from the notice area, it was about 58 in opposition from either mailing back the public notices or direct emails to me, and 12 in support. So the special exception criteria, first one is the use shall be consistent with the comp plan. In this instance, as I mentioned, based on the policies, it wouldn't be. So while it's allowed as a special exception in A1, it's only really considered consistent through the comp plan if the use is allowed in A1 and A2 and AR and all the RCE districts, either outright or by a special exception. So say like a church or a cell tower or some agricultural uses is either a P on the use table in all those districts or a P or an S in those districts. In those instances, it would be considered consistent. In this instance, because it's only an S in the A1s and not in the RCEs, wouldn't be consistent. And as mentioned, planning staff noted that it's not really consistent with the rural layout of the rural settlement. Would not be similar and compatible to the surrounding area. So it does surround some non-residential uses. To the north is a landfill for many, many acres. And to the south are some county rib sites, which are effectively large kind of vacant lands that are, big sand pits that are used to take in water. However, directly to the west are about 5-acre lots in Lake County that contain houses. And just based on the number of trips this would generate, it's not similar and compatible in that instance, and same with noise. So it's an intrusive use into the rural settlement and in the ag area. Again, detrimental intrusion, just the scale and intensity compared to what is there and other uses that could be there. It's a little bit more intense than those. They do meet all the performance requirements except for the variance request, and staff is recommending denial of those variances. If they were to redesign and make that code be met, they would be meeting all the performance standards for RV parks. Similar and compatible, or similar in noise, vibration, dust, odor. This use would generate more trips than other standard non-residential uses, and it would just generate more noise and be more intense than most other uses that would be permitted or permitted by special exception. And then they are providing the code-required landscape buffers. Code requires a Type E buffer for RV parks, which they would be providing by providing the 25-foot width and the trees as planted on the landscape plan. For the variances, staff's also recommending denial. Basically, this is a site they could design to make the meet code. They could move the campsites, they could reduce the number of campsites, they could do a variety of things to make sure that the campsites were 75 feet away from the building. So there's no special circumstances. It's not self-created, very much would be self-created. No special privilege, right? A vacant site, they could redesign it. It's not a deprivation of rights or the minimum possible variance. Could be redesigned to meet code. And then the purpose and intent is to have the buildings farther away from campsites, so not meeting that. So staff recommends denial of the special exception and the variances. However, the BZA should find that the applicant has satisfied the criteria for the granting of variance, subject to the conditions on our staff report. And I will note the applicant, after the staff report was written and the presentation made, did email staff some proposed self-imposed conditions. I'm going to go over those in the next slide, and you have them in front of you. Those conditions, in some instances, are just kind of above and beyond what code requires. In some instances, they're just saying code. There's a little bit of overlap with staff's general conditions in the staff report, mainly on the lighting, but we'll go over those here. So the applicant's proposing to add a 6-inch curbing to mandate right-hand turns only out of the property, providing a 6-foot opaque fence on the entire western boundary where they abut Lake County, moving the pool to a 50-foot building setback. Code doesn't really basically only requires a 50-foot setback or a 25-foot setback for the pool because of that buffer. They'd be proposing to move the pool. The dog park would be fenced and gated access. No permanent residence. Again, code doesn't allow permanent residence. Code has a maximum stay of less than 6 months. They're proposing a maximum stay of 28 nights, which is more than what code requires. They're obviously limiting their amenities and facilities to registered guests, people staying at the campground. They would have a secure method for entry after hours, 24-hour staff on site, registration that included animals of the name, species, and breed. Again, another code, they'd have to comply with animals at large prohibition, which I think is from our animal services code, requires, I think, dogs not run around by themselves. Dark sky lighting required, which we have covered in our conditions staff report. They were proposing quiet hours between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m., no full facility PA system, no fireworks, no off-road vehicles, and then no golf carts on the public roads, so basically not going out onto Rex Drive or further in. And then having signage that says no golf carts beyond this point, and then check-in allowed as early as 1 p.m. So those are the applicant's proposed conditions, and I'll let the applicant speak to those. The staff conditions are 1 and 2, the standard conditions, 3 standard condition, 4, that permits be pulled within 3 years, and then 5, that the lighting be dark sky standards. Just a little more detail. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Any questions of staff? All right, is the applicant present?
Chair and members, thank you all for your volunteerism and being here this late at night. And I can assure you, I've worked in the county and with rural settlements enough that I wouldn't be here before you if I didn't really believe that my client has worked hard to make this a use that is compatible with the rural settlement. My name is Becky Wilson, 215 North Eola Drive, here on behalf of the property owner. We call the project Old Florida Groves, and I have the owners with me here. They not only own this piece of property, but they would also be the ones who would improve it and include the campsites. So they've been working really hard on a vision for agritourism, that it be this world-class immersive experience. As staff said, agritourism is already allowed on this large site. So there are lots of places in Orange County where you run into agritourism, that unfortunately is not regulated by the county and often causes, I'm thinking of the Southern Hills blueberries and the pumpkins, that often cause a lot of traffic into these communities. So what we've tried to do is think of a way that people could come onto the property and enjoy those activities instead of kind of throwing open the gates and having lots of people come in. So we looked at doing 4 different things with this piece of property. First, conservation. As Taylor pointed out, we have approximately 40 acres of planted pines. Our proposal is to leave the majority of those pines and build these campsites in that pine stand. The second is preservation of the ag land. If we were to develop this under A1 or under our current future land use, it's at 1 residential unit per 5 acres. You don't see residential units out here that keep orange groves or silviculture in their front or backyards. We would lose all of this agriculture if we're forced to go with the traditional development in the rural settlement. Stewardship, my clients, one is a 7th generation Floridian, the other a 3rd generation Floridian. They're really interested in creating something special in this area. And then experiential, and that is we want to create these portions of the property for agritourism. And in fact, as we've gotten to know the Lake Avalon rural settlement, it's been great because people have offered, I'm an expert in this or I'm an expert in that. We'd love to come and teach a class in it. So this is the site plan rendered, and I just want to point out a couple of things. So as mentioned by staff, it's about 84 acres, which is a huge piece of property. What we're proposing is that the first 40 acres remain in orange groves. And not just remain in the orange groves in the position that they're in now, but my clients already spent around $3.7 million both on purchasing the land and improving the orange groves in this area by adding different types of citrus that are more hardy and having a grove manager out there working with these trees. We have what you see in the middle, the farm core, that's the museum, the barn, and the Discovery Center. Discovery Center, again, those things are incredibly far back from Rex Grove. And then just to the south of that is the Amenity Center, which is the pool area to service the campground. As you can see back through the campground, there are a few roads in there. Up on the northwest corner, we have sort of the quiet pool, and that's what Taylor mentioned. We've agreed to move that further away from the border to the west. We've also cut through here different walking trails. As you can see, numbered 13, that is an interesting karst feature that we're going to preserve and have a walking trail around it. With regard to the variance request, those are, as Taylor described, because some of our really bathroom buildings, bathhouses, were too close to our own internal campsites per the code. Tonight, we will remove that request for the variances, and we can work to give better separation between the campsites and those bathrooms. Let me see if there was anything. Oh, and then also to the west, there is a 50-foot buffer. There's about 25 feet of landscape. We agreed to a 50-foot buffer for the amenity center, and then also with the fence that's actually all the way around. Oh, and then you'll see the check-in where it says number 15. That is where the visitors would check in through there. As you can see, that's pulled very far off of Rex Drive, so that not only it's not visible, but also that it gives plenty of room for stacking and queuing. So this is what it would look like from Rex Drive. These are the groves that you would continue to get to see as you pull from McKinney heading north into the rural settlement. This is if you were to pull into our project. We have the winding road, and as you saw from the architecture that Taylor shared, we're trying to have all of this look like sort of an old Florida farmstead. This is more of that area that would be the farm core. And then this is the area that would be the amenity pool that's across from the campsites. This is to give you an idea of the character of the campground that we're looking for. It's rural. We want to have this type of fencing that is typical of rural Florida. This is sort of the farm core, both the architecture and the materials that we would be using in the farm core. Similarly, the campground, as you may be aware, there is really high demand for high-end camping, and this is the type of uses that we would imagine being cut back into that about 40 acres of pine. This is the character of the materials that we're working with Dix Height on. And then I just wanted a little bit to address staff's concerns about compatibility. So this is a picture from not that long ago, 2018, and you see a lot of orange groves out in this area. So our piece of property, I don't know if you guys can see my pinpoint, but our piece of property, the red line is the rural settlement line. So everything south of that is in Horizon West. Our piece of property is it's the grove and the silviculture that you see right above the county's Conserve 2 ribs. And what's to the north of us is a waste management landfill. So we have a really unusual piece of property. We've got 80 acres. To the north of us, we have a landfill. And by the way, that was permitted by a special exception also. It is also a use that is not common to any of the RCE uses. So we got, whether it should have been done or shouldn't have been done, it is a fact that we are adjacent to a landfill that has lots of dump trucks every day, many times lined up in front of our piece of property, that go there each day. To the south, although a benign neighbor, right, we have also about 80 acres of city and county Conserve 2, which is a fancy word for it's a water treatment plant down there. And you can see that this is a high recharge area of the county, which is why there are several of these county recharges in this district. Well, in just 6 years, what we've seen is our piece of property has, in fact, in this one, it appears that some of the orchard has degraded, but our piece of properties remained the same. What's really changed is the character of McKinney. As you drive in with Horizons West, you can see all of the homes that have been developed in this area. And each time there was a home built, as you can see, they stripped the piece of property of the agricultural use. And we're really trying to find a financially feasible way to keep the property in an agricultural use and not do the same thing. I also want to point out that the closest home to the special exception, to the RVs, is over 1,600 feet away. This is, if you are on McKinney looking north, you first have 80 acres of Conserve 2, and then you can see in the background those pine trees. That's where we would have the RVs, campsites cut back into there. And then if you are on Rex Drive, looking to the west, this is the grove that we would maintain, and the campsites would not be until you get all the way back to those pine trees. We had someone who had permission to be on our site, but the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement HOA president wanted to do a test on her own, and she got a balloon from Publix and flew it at 12 feet high to better understand sort of what would be visible back there. So this picture is taken in between where the orchard ends and the silviculture begins. And as you can see, those pine trees are so much taller than any of the campsites would be. We heard staff's concern about traffic, and that's one of the things that we have been working with the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement HOA. And so we would have on our website for visitors, and then also wanted to work with the county on signage to bring people on from the 429 onto McKinney Road, take a north on Rex Drive. There's a left in, as I mentioned before, our check-in is about a quarter mile onto the site, so we've got plenty of room for queuing. And then when people leave, they would, on our site, go north, come out, and then with the curbing, we agreed to be directed to go back out. I myself have never driven an RV or a motor coach, but my understanding is that they are usually looking for the easiest ingress and egress that they can find, and that's why we were going to make this very easy. This is the signage that we spoke to the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement HOA about and would like to work with the county. OFG is Old Florida Groves, in order that we could properly sign some of their right-of-way to ensure proper access to the site. And then I just briefly wanted to mention that RV resorts are pretty common to rural settlements. So the Clarkona Rural Settlement has an RV. They've got two of them. And then Christmas also has this type of use, and so does Bithlo. And if you'll look, each one of these uses was approved before these areas became rural settlements, which to me is even more interesting because the future land use 6.2 states that rural settlements were intended to recognize and preserve existing development patterns at the time of the comp plan adoption in 1991. So at that time, some of these uses were intentionally added to or kept inside of rural settlements. And these are all on Ag A1 also. This is the list of conditions of approval. Again, these conditions were negotiated with, or many of them suggested by, the homeowners in the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement, and I believe go hand in hand with creating compatibility with the rural settlement. I just want I appreciate that staff shared with us that there are 300 emails in opposition. Unfortunately, there seems to be a lot of misinformation being spread about what we are requesting, and I just want to clear some of that up. This is not a trailer park. There are no permanent residents. In fact, as we've looked around, you know, the nightly fee to stay here is incredibly high. There would not be a reason for people to try to stay here permanently. Important to some of the people in the rural settlement is that there is no change to the future land use or zoning in the rural settlement. I believe many of them feel as though bits and pieces are being picked at, increasing the future land use to 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 in other areas of the rural settlement. So we're keeping this property as ag. There's no extension of the urban services. There is no new septic, which we would have new septics if we were to add houses. Instead, we have our own water treatment and that actually creates some reclaimed water we can use. This continues the agriculture and silviculture uses. Over 70% remains in its current condition. No impacts on schools and no impacts on wetlands. I really appreciate you all's time today. I'm sorry that was a little bit long. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have. And if I could just have the opportunity, if there are some concerns about the project, that I just be able to address those.
Any questions?
This paper that we have in front of us, the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement is the HOA that was concerned about your project.
I believe I'm not aware of that. I'll let the residents speak for themselves, but I believe the HOA president is here in favor.
Okay. And you said that you're going to have your own water system, but no new septic.
Yes, so we currently have a well, because this is an orchard, right? We have a well that's permitted for 10 to 12 million gallons. We need much less than that, so we'll use that. We are not creating septic tanks. We have a full water treatment system that is located adjacent to the landfill.
So your wastewater plant is going to treat your waste.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Please come. Anyone looking to speak in favor, please come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Lori Forrester, 16050 Sand Hill Road, Winter Garden, Florida. I do want to just say up front that there were quite a few people that were here to speak in favor, and they had to leave. And so I did have some people that were going to donate their time because I really needed 3 minutes. So I know I have 2, so I will try to talk very fast. So what I want to say is that this requires a special exception. It is still 1 to 5. It is still A1. That does not change. And like the applicant mentioned, 70% of this will remain in agriculture and what it is now from the citrus and the tree stand. It was noted in the presentation that their goal was to minimize the impact on the community while offering unique agricultural-related learning experiences to the guests with the ability to offer campsites to their participants. Their agritourism classes, workshops, and experiences will be for the benefit of their on-site guests, eliminating the need for local participation and the related traffic that would bring. So I love Southern Hill Farms, love going there, but they can do thousands of cars on a weekend to come and go there. That is not what will happen here. Since the campsites are a permitted use in A1 zoning via special exceptions, concerns about these hundreds of additional vehicle trips per day to accommodate the local day trips is a moot point. It doesn't exist because this is not a Southern Hill Farms. The applicants have been diligent in working with the community and not just our HOA, but engagement with well over 50 of our residents to ask for their input. And you saw that they have changed the design of their plan. They have added the conditions, et cetera, to their plans as a result. And those were detailed by the applicant when they were speaking. In the past 4 months, and can I please get 1 more minute?
1 more minute, please.
Thank you. In the past 4 months, there have been 2 applications to change future land use and zoning entitlements for parcels in our rural settlement. Staff concluded that the changes were appropriate and recommended for approval. The changes in land use we had 2. One of them was the change in land use from rural settlement 1 to 5 to institutional, and zoning from A1 to planned development. The other one was rural settlement 1 to 5 to rural settlement 1 to 2, A1 to A1 restricted. And it is apparent from staff recommendations that the rural settlement designation of 1 to 5 is not considered binding. They are very open to changing rural settlement 1 to 5. That is not a given, but this project does keep it rural settlement 1 to 5. They're not asking for an forever entitlement on the parcel. They are asking for a special exception. Thank you.
My name is Art Slow. I'm also a member of the board of the Homeowners Association of Lake Avalon Rural Settlement. I'm here to speak in favor. One of the things that we have to consider as a board is a long-term viability of
We
our
just
area.
need your address, please, sorry.
I'm sorry, 17160 Sand Hill Road. We have to consider the long-term viability of our area. And while right now, the board and the commission behind you are favorable to preserving the rural settlement designations, we are not certain that that will be the political environment going forward forever. We have an opportunity here to preserve the last functioning grove in the rural settlement. Should this grove come down, that's the end of it. No more oranges, no more smell, gone. We have the opportunity to keep over 70% of this parcel in tree cover for cooling, for reclamation of water, for protection of wildlife. We have the opportunity to keep the sight lines in the area essentially unchanged. Because if you notice the pictures that you saw earlier and the height of that balloon in the center picture, if you walk the perimeter, RVs are approximately 12 feet tall. Those trees are 40 feet tall. Sheltered within those trees, you will not see this facility from McKinney or from Rex. It abuts a landfill on the north. Back in the day when properties were cheap, and maybe somebody give $150,000 for a 5-acre property there. 5 acres is now going for $1 million in the area. No one with $1 million is going to abut a landfill. And so we're looking at preserving what we have to the best of our ability. Development is coming. We recognize that. We're forced to accept that there's going to be a change from completely wild land to some use. As a board, we have looked at this use and evaluated it as a reasonable compromise that preserves our area, protects our environment, and keeps us rural. Thank you.
The information that we have in front of us, do you represent the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement?
I do not. I'm an attorney. I do not represent them. I'm on their board.
So then who is the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement? Who is that group?
So we are a homeowners association that is a voluntary association that is composed of the homeowners within the Lake Avalon rural boundary, together with those Lake County residents who reach us only through our property, which would say Phil C. Peters Road.
Okay,
We are a not-for-profit.
all right.
Anyone else to speak in favor of the application?
Mark Mansfield, 16362 Sand Hill Road, Winter Garden. I'm speaking in favor of the applicant. The special exception, as noted in the application, doesn't impact or change the current zoning allowed in the rural settlement. And the change will not have any impact on the comprehensive plan or the flume. And this means that if the development is sold, the special exception expires, and the zoning of 1 per 5 and the flume are not affected. And because this project is authorized and allowed by Florida statute as an agritourism development, it is by law compatible with the rural settlement development patterns. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the application? All right, if we could have everyone come forward who's wishing to speak in opposition. State your name and address, please.
Good evening. Thank you for seeing me. My name is Georgette Lemieux. I reside at 17234 Cork Street within the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement. I don't have the depth of knowledge that you folks have. I can tell you, I do believe that they've done a great job in presenting this as best as it could. Prior to our last community meeting that was held by these folks, I held our HOA president in the highest regard. And if you were at the same meeting I was, nobody other then the board members had approved this. I don't have the same scope that they have, but I have a pretty good scope. Regardless of what has been spoken here, the applicant, by the applicant and their attorney, please know the people in the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement are in opposition. I can tell you, I have never been asked or talked to by the board members in regards to how I felt about this applicant's application for the variance request. I want to express my strong opposition. I believe the development is not aligned with the comprehensive plan and will have a negative impact on our community. The RV park in the rural settlement is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. Since an RV park is not permitted use in any of the other zoning districts consistent with the rural settlement designation, it cannot be considered a common use and therefore is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. An RV park, gosh, don't you know that shut down? An RV park, sorry, I'm so sorry, which primarily serves transient guests. It doesn't meet the criteria for residential use. So as well as they have articulated the traffic, I used Waze. I am directionally challenged. I'm going where it tells me. Imagine 249 at different times coming in and out of the rural settlement, which, by the way, was designated as such prior to them spending $3.7 million to acquisition it. So, you know, I just want to say one other thing. If I may, the intensity of use and the impact of the nearby single-home family, and I'm on Cork Street, which is right next to it, it's going to substantially be detriment to the community's character. It's a rural settlement. I thank you for your time, and I genuinely do appreciate you extending your long day for us. I'm grateful.
Hello, my name is Matt Galiotto. I live at 3801 Rex Drive. I'm going to defer my time to my wife since she has a lot to say.
Hello, I'm Jamie Galiotto at 3801 Rex Drive. I just want to have let you know I'm piggybacking off of the strong opposition that we have in our community. We did have that meeting, and I could tell you that out of those 100 people, there was not anybody that was excited about this project. As a matter of fact, this whole community in the Lake Avalon settlement is a voluntary HOA, and it's a very small fraction of people who pay in dues. We don't have monthly meetings. It's not an active HOA, and the thing is that we were very, very shocked to see that Lori is in such strong connections with this project. So I do want to let you know that we are strongly opposed in our neighborhood. Another thing is that this is definitely an agritourism loophole. Nobody would be putting a 250-person hotel room on this property as well. There's a lot of disease groves. That's why the groves are getting depleted, because people are just mowing them down. They're old and diseased, and especially on this property, they are as well. There's a lot of agritourism campgrounds that are in Central Florida, and they have no more than 16 sites. This is a large commercial RV park. It's not agritourism. If you took that away, these people would not be interested in doing something like this. I do want to let you know, in the agricultural part has to be the primary stream of income. Stream of income, not secondary income. So the Florida statute 461 and 570, that states that, you know, the RV park cannot be the cash cow and be the primary source. There is a 50-foot buffer, but the people on Black Bear Drive definitely are very concerned about people being right in the back of their neighborhood, because they are in the Lake County as well. The GPS, like they were saying, going on, the GPS will take you through the neighborhood. We get a lot of traffic through there as well. There's already, like the representative said of the project, there is a lot of traffic that comes to the landfill. This would just add way more. There was just an accident right on McKinney and Lake Avalon where the whole truck fell over this last week and blocked the whole entire space of it. So then you're definitely looking into going into the neighborhoods on that. And I do want to let you know that, that online form and those mail-ins, those do mean a voice. Those are opposition. Those are strong people that are in opposition to this. And a lot of these people don't think it's an RV community where people are going to live there. They know exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be large RVs coming in and out of there. It's a resort. You're building a resort in the middle of a rural community. So I just am here to please give you that, a kind of a picture of, Lori working with them as a head of HOA for the Lake Avalon is voluntary, and it's a very, very small portion, and that is not how our community feels. We are very opposed, and we would like you to deny the project, please. Thank you.
Before you leave,
Yes.
what would you like to see built on that parcel?
So if somebody were to use anything about that parcel, the rural designation for the 1 per 5 acres, it would be lovely if there was either residential or if somebody did want to do some type of light agritourism, that's fine. But I do feel like the RV park is just definitely overkill. But residential would be nice.
I think my question is, how much of the RV setup how many acres will you occupy? Because we're talking 84 acres here, aren't we? So how much is it of what the footprint will be for the project that they're proposing?
They're taking half, right? 50%. So it's 83 acres, so it will be 41 acres on the RV.
And the rest remaining groves?
Well, half of it, I would believe, is the RV, and then there's groves and also the buildings, which I will say are extremely large for that community.
You said buildings,
The buildings, the very large buildings that they're wanting to put on the property.
so that wouldn't be in the 40-something acres that they're proposing that the footprint would be?
They have half of the property for RVs, and then on the other half is going to be the building, and then the groves.
So that's more than the 50% then? 40, no?
Chair, may I just address it in remote?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll cover that. in
We'll cover
rebuttal.
Yeah,
We'll hold
it's
that
half
thought.
of the property is the RV, and then you can see the buildings, and then half of it is going to be the orchard.
Question for staff. How many houses per acre? Is it 1 per 5 acres?
Yeah, the future land use is 1 per 5 acres. So
So in 83, basically would be
About
16 and change.
16 and change.
16 houses.
So you prefer houses than?
Yeah,
will be like
I mean,
16?
honestly, I did say if this was an agritourism place and it had 16 campsites with very low impact, I would not be opposed to 16 as a very maximum, something where the buildings weren't so grand. But usually the agritourism sites that I investigated have already site-built property, like they already have an existing barn or they have something existing that they're piggybacking off of and using those buildings to use in their agritourism, on the property. So, but 1 per 5 acre, yes, if it was a 1 per 5 acre home and it was a site-built home, yes, I would feel more comfortable with that being in our neighborhood because it is a residential use.
I hear something about real estate value, losing value because this RV will be on the back of your
Yes.
houses. Is that correct? Do you?
I
How do you guys feel about that?
I do feel like that too, and I do feel like a lot of people do think that. I mean, there was just a $10 million home built on Cork. There's a lot of people who are right now developing on their 5 acre parcels, larger and larger homes. The RV park does not go and fit into that mold of people owning a home on 5 acres, building a really nice house, and then having an RV park right down the street from it. It just doesn't. And it does affect property values for sure.
Thank you.
So you feel overall that the project that's being proposed does not meet the intent of the rural settlement areas?
Right, correct.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Next person, please.
Hello, my name is Michael Sweet, 16427 Silver Saw Palm Drive in Winter Garden, and I'm deferring my time to my wife, Amanda.
I stand before you to voice my strong opposition to the proposed development.
Your name and address, please.
Oh, sorry, Amanda, same address, 16427.
Do you have a last name, Amanda?
I do. This is being televised. People are creepy. My name is Amanda Robertson. I stand before you to voice my strong opposition to the proposed development of an RV park in our residential community. Our neighborhood has prided itself on being a safe, family-friendly area where residents feel secure and valued. The proposed RV park poses several concerns that I believe are crucial for the council to consider. Firstly, there is an issue of safety and security. Our community has low crime rates and a sense of security. Introducing a high-traffic RV park could potentially disrupt this balance, leading to an increased security concern and a higher risk of transient populations that might not be familiar with the area's norms and values. Secondly, we need to address the impact on our infrastructure. Our local roads and facilities, not to mention lack of gas stations, were not designed to handle an influx of RV traffic. Increased congestion and wear and tear on our infrastructure could result in significant costs for maintenance and upgrades, which would ultimately fall upon our community's residents. Moreover, the aesthetic and environmental impact cannot be overlooked. An RV park would lead to decreased property values and work against what residents bought into when we moved here. We were told this area would be small businesses, and now it's chains and apartments. Do we want to add an RV park to this lie? Lastly, we must consider the strain on local resources and services. An RV park will bring additional demand for essential services, water supply, emergency response, which could stretch our resources thin and impact the quality of services available to our current residents. I urge the City Council to take these considerations seriously and consider the long-term implications of the development. Our neighborhood is a place where families can thrive, and it is crucial that we protect the character and quality of what we hold dear. At the end of the day, no one is arguing the beautiful designs that the applicant is putting forward, but they're missing the mark that the residents do not want an RV park in their neighborhood. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and I trust that you will make a decision that reflects the best interest of our community.
Thank you.
Next person, please.
I'm Janet Davis. My address is 3233 Avalon Road, and I do live in the rural settlement as well. I'm still scratching my head here, and maybe you can answer my question that, given that what I'm hearing, it sounds like we have large hotel rooms that are going to get moved in and moved out all the time, and that there will be amenities in here like a hotel would have. So why is this not a commercial kind of zoning? And it is a big moneymaker, there's no doubt. And I can't make this kind of money on my land, so I just don't have an explanation for it. It doesn't make sense to me, but we can talk about that later, or maybe somebody can answer my question, because it appears very commercial to me. And I'm afraid that, agritourism is a fabulous thing, but how can that be enforced over time? Can all of that go by the wayside later because nobody's paying attention? Can they decide to bring in more numbers later, or request more numbers later, or develop more of it later? And unfortunately, our rural settlement has been pummeled.
Wait, hold on. Stand by. We need to get her because we don't have a quorum.
Janet Davis.
All right, you can continue.
Yes.
Sorry. We
What I
can't-
was saying is that our rural settlement has been irrevocably changed forever already, and we've been going through this for like 20 years. I've got ask fatigue, if you know what I mean, for things that seem inappropriate, but they have to get the right to look and do whatever they want to, and it's taken us a lot of time and investment. So I would reiterate a lot of the things that the other people already said and everything that's in your staff report, that Nothing makes this look compatible to me. And if I'm doing the math right, does this mean that there could be up to 1,000 people per day on that property? I'll leave you with that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Crystal Seidel. Excuse me. I live at 17133 Alp Street, Winter Garden, Florida. And I've been there for quite a long time, moved there in '91. There's been a house in the Seidel residence there since 1969. So I've seen a lot of changes in our area, and this is not one I want to see. So I'm definitely against it, and just because it's not a rural settlement thing to put in there, so that's all I have to say. I'm definitely against it.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in opposition? All right, Counselor?
Thank you so much. And so just to get it on the record, there was a question about how much of the site is being used, and there's sort of a joke amongst us land use attorneys, and that is every project I've ever done has been the same size because it all fits on your screen, right? So it's hard to grasp that this is 80 acres total. This is a huge amount of land. And so we are only placing the campsites on the western 40 acres. However, we are not impacting all 40 of those acres. So total amount of land that is impacted is roughly 30% of the land. And so I think that answers your question, Ms. Shakespeare. And look, I think what we're seeing is maybe a disagreement amongst people who live in the rural settlement as to how they want to see that rural settlement over time. What we're trying to do is preserve some of the last remaining agricultural land. And the only way we can do that is to monetize it in some way. If not, our only other option is to have it become housing. And very close to us and allowed within the rural settlement is rural 1 to 2 and rural 1 to 1. And so it is more likely than as developing as one house per 5 acres, which would be 16, that you would see the next application be for 1 per 1 or 1 per 2, which would yield 84 homes, or it would yield around 40 homes. We're also adjacent to a landfill. I don't think the county wants to encourage us to build homes that back up to a landfill. Unfortunately, housing seems like people will go live anywhere at this point to find something they can afford. But building homes up against a landfill is not going to be good for the landfill long term, and it's certainly not going to be good for those homeowners. I appreciate that the rural settlement has what one woman described as ask fatigue. And I believe that is one of the reasons that the members of the voluntary HOA who took the time to sit down with us and better understand this weighed their options, and they don't want to keep having to come down to the county admin building and fight for this property, whether it's 1 to 1 or 1 to 2, or if we're coming in at 1 to 5. They want to find a use where they can keep what it looks like when they drive down Rex Drive and not have a row of houses going down Rex Drive and the destruction of these groves. With all of that, there is no oversight by this board or the county of general agritourism either. The only way that the county is able to manage these agritourism uses is because it's part of this special exception for the campsites. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have.
All right, let's see if I can get an answer to my question previously.
Yes, sir.
It says here, below, please find conditions of approval that the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement would like to see added to the project. We have worked with representatives of that group, defined group.
Yes. So the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement HOA, the members of the HOA that are here, if you'll raise your hand. All right, the members of the board of the HOA. So I worked with the members of the board of the HOA because that's what you do with HOAs. You go to their board, and that's who we worked with to come up with those conditions.
So you work specifically with the board members, but not necessarily the residents at the meeting.
The meetings,
Uh,
well, I think you asked me a question. I'd like the opportunity to
all right,
answer.
go ahead.
Yes. So we went to the community meeting, and the community meeting had a lot of people who did not live in the rural settlement. And after that meeting, the person I reached out to, that my clients reached out to, was the president of the homeowners association. We did not find that it was our business to get into how the homeowner association gets word out to its group or has meetings, but they did have a board meeting that we did attend and have spent a lot of time with. So yes, we don't know how else to go out and do that other than to deal with those people who have been elected to serve on the board.
How many people were on the meeting, on the community meeting? Do you remember, more or less?
At the community meeting itself, I agree with staff, it was around 90 people. I think there were, when we looked at the registration, there were about 26 of those people that lived in the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement, and many of them lived in, because we're very close to the border of Horizon West, and so a lot of people lived in Horizon West that were in that. And we found that since this discussion is primarily about compatibility with the rural settlement, that it made the most sense for us to then go directly to the rural settlements HOA.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
In regards, I heard someone mention earlier about what else could possibly go there. Or you initially, when you proposed this project, you had a larger amount of campsites
Yes.
allotted for this project? And
Yes.
so after having this meeting with the board members, you then
Reduced.
got with your clients and reduced the footprint. Were there any other alternatives that you guys may have considered?
Well, certainly churches are popular in this rural settlement, but we were not considering that. That's allowed as a special exception. No, we've really tried to lean into the agritourism. As I've said, we're already spending money and trying to make this grove better. Unfortunately, it's not going to survive financially feasible just as a grove and silviculture, and we're just looking for something else to be able to sustain that use. So
So how
we
many?
could always sell it to the landfill to the north. I mean, you know, they've got a special exception.
How many is the 249 in our book, is that the reduced number of campsites?
Yes, that is the reduced number.
All right. Anything else?
No, I really appreciate you all this time. Thank you.
All right. Public hearing is closed.
So I got a question. The traffic study, what it says about this, because it's 250, I got the question many times on these 300 letters about the traffic study on these 250 units going in and out from this place. So how that works?
Myrna from our Transportation Planning Department has been here for a while.
Okay.
And thank you
You
for, I'll let her
review it,
defer to
right.
that. She reviewed the traffic study, her department.
Okay,
and
thank
can
you.
go into the specifics of it.
My name is Myrna Barg. I'm a project manager with transportation planning. The study they submitted is for a comp plan, for the special exception, which consists of trip generation and trip distribution. They will still have to do another study when they come through the concurrency process because they are affecting few failing roadways within the 2.5 miles since it's in the rural. The trip generation for the 249 is 67 p.m. peak trip, because for traffic engineer, we assess the worst time of the day, which is between 4 and 6. So there will be 67 cars are coming in between 4 and 6 RVs at this point. And daily, it's about 880. That's during the day, the entire day. That's the trip generation, sir.
How many?
884 during the day.
Per day?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Does that 67 trips and the 884 include RV vehicles?
This is
those
for
are
the
RV.
RV use, yes.
Okay.
This is the
All
trip
RV.
generation for the RV. But remember, for the 884, that's daily. That means from, the morning all the way, all
All the
day
way down
long.
to, yeah.
And the time of it, we don't know. But we measure the worst time, which is 4 to 6, and it's only 67 trips.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
So that's 800 a
Sounds
day?
like a lot of trips.
So that's 800 a day,
Per day.
887 per day.
but during that heavily trafficked time, it's 67.
67.
Yes. Is
Seems
there
like a lot
RV.
for
modeling?
There are
only
no
to be
vehicles, there are RVs.
249. How did they come up with,
Well,
excuse me, I have a question. How did you guys come up with the 800 and,
Well, this is the traffic study their consultant submitted to us. We reviewed it based on ITE, which is the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They have surveyed several park sites, RV park sites throughout the country. And based on the survey and the data collection, they come up with the rate for that use.
even though there are only 249 campsites?
Yes, ma'am. That's the variable,
Okay.
and remember, we don't measure by the daily, we measure by the PM peak, which is the worst time from 4 to
Right,
6.
which is, yes.
we'll reopen the public hearing.
Thank you,
'cause
thank
I
you.
want to hear
And
them.
first, I want to thank Myrna for being here. She's been here also since 1:30, so I appreciate staff doing that. And just wanted to mention that one of the reasons, again, as Myrna stated, this is not based on a traffic study of this particular type of use, but it's generalized what types of sort of RV parks create. One of the things that we did work with the HOA is trying to add amenities. So we have 2 pools, the big pool in the middle, and then the other pool that's sort of the more quiet pool, along with other activities, because that was their point too. We would like you to build things to do on site so that you are capturing more of that, and it's not 884, but more people are staying. They feel like you come for the weekend, you pack up everybody, you park your high-end RV, and then you go to the pool, you walk around, you see the orchards, and do that type of thing. And that's really the type of customer that we're looking for, instead of somebody that's coming and going back and forth. And then just also to mention that the traffic study that they reviewed also does show a distribution with no trips going through the rural settlement. Just on its own, the model pulls them all down McKinney and out to New Independence.
Wait a minute, ma'am, counselor?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the word high-end RV,
Yes, sir.
so we to assume that these are the fancy buses?
Well, it could be either. So those are called, I believe, motor coaches.
Yeah.
Those are the fancy buses, and then also the RVs or you know, the Airstream trailers that are kind of popular for small families.
So
that's
in
what
other
we're
words,
looking
you'll
for.
accept a pickup truck with a small RV attached to it?
Yes. Yes.
I would like to
Most
add-
pickup trucks that pull those are pretty nice.
Now that we got a, can I ask her a question?
Yes, let's,
Can, please.
I would think that that's based on their marketing and stuff like that, with whatever type of car or truck.
Hello, Jamie Galiotto, 3801 Rex. I just was wanting to say that this is in very close proximity to Disney. I don't know if you know exactly where this is. I'm sure you saw the map, but it's like literally the back of Disney. This is what the draw is going to be, is to go in and out. I could tell you that in my experience, people coming into a property like this is not going to be a draw to go look at some orange trees. Those people are coming in there and they're going to be they're on vacation and they're not staying there just to go slap around in a pool. That is my opinion. Also, these are right now I know that there's down the road a plan for them to expand the road, but Avalon Road is a one-way, each way. We're at McKinney currently. So with that traffic study and adding, that road is not even repaved right now. So it's in very, very poor condition as well. So I know that there's a lot of talk about high-end RVs, but you really can't tell somebody what kind of RV and camper they can have and what they can't have. So it's going to be high-end to them, and they're pitching a high-end, but it could be any type of camping really at this point. And the 40 acres that they're having the campers on, that's half of the property. I understand that they're trying to argue the footprint itself, like, hey, we're only placing it. But there's half of the property is going to be definitely camping, and half of it's going to be some trees, and then there are large buildings on the property. So that was what I wanted to add to that as well.
Thank you.
all right, we are going to fully
Close
close
the-
public hearing.
You want the lady to rebut?
Although, Counselor, if you want to rebut anything that was raised by this young lady.
But that makes
But then
sense.
we are going to close.
Sorry, I know you're going to close. If the concern is the type or make of what's coming in, we're happy to talk to you all about limiting those. But generally, people are paying over $200 a night to come in, so there's not a reason that someone would come in here and use this permanently. Thank you.
All right, public hearing is closed for the last time on the famous last words on this case. All right, discussion. I have to admit that I am flummoxed. I have to applaud the applicant. The plan is beautiful. And I think that it is a unique plan for this type of property. And I applaud the applicant for that. I understand where as someone who served as the president of her own HOA for over 11 years, I understand where the board was coming from and trying to do the best that they could to protect. And that's actually why I asked, what do you want to see built there? Because there's 40-foot-high pines that are gorgeous and are going to hide everything that you would see from the road, or one house per acre, they're probably going to mow it all down and you're going to see nothing but rooftops. So there's that, and I can understand where the board was coming from to try and preserve as much of what's there as possible. But I also read every one
Me too.
of the 300 emails plus that were sent to me. And I understand the concerns about the traffic, and I sat here and did a little math while we've been listening very intently to everything, and at 249, that could very well be over 1,000 people a day on this parcel.
At least, yeah.
And it is very much in close proximity to Disney, which would mean all of these cars coming in, all of these cars coming out,
Yeah, that's making it worse. because
which
they-
is
they-
definitely, while the project itself would not necessarily impact the character in appearance-wise, I fear that having 249 families
they're going to
coming
Disney,
in and rolling out to go to the theme parks
It's gonna be
on a
nightmare,
roadway
yeah.
that's already failing is definitely going to have a severe
30 more
impact.
minutes.
My husband's ready to shoot me, it's okay. I've been told 3 times, you're not getting paid to be there today, and I'm like, I know. And he's also reminded me that I've got multiple things that I am getting paid for tomorrow that I haven't prepared for.
Yeah.
But it's, so I'm struggling with that because what's better? Having 249 Jeep Wranglers coming out and going to Disney? Or having families with multiple cars
Yeah.
and
And also the.
and basically something that would be eventually coming in. And I had to chuckle at the comment that, the county isn't going to build right up on the landfill, but I live on the east side of town.
That's exactly
And
what they
let me tell you, that you could buy a house right on up to the gates
Yes, you
to the
can.
big dump. So I'm just saying. So I don't know. I'm sort of,
It's kind of like you're torn.
I am
Yeah,
very
I-
torn
Lesser
as to which potential use
is
would
going
have
to
the
be
most
better.
impact on this community.
I think you will impact the cost, the value of the properties on this community. Having this RV next to your house will be an issue.
That was something that it was of concern also, and there were a lot of emails that raised that concern. And people who had, were concerned about their biggest investment potentially being impacted by this. Vice Chair Drago, any thoughts?
Well, when I first read it several times, the observation I gleaned from the report was that it didn't meet the intent of the rural settlement areas. And we've had cases come before us that would encroach into the rural settlement areas, Horizon West being one. And I know the county's going through a charter change and other policy issues to try to protect it. So after I read it, I felt, well, this board has an obligation to at least protect the rural settlement areas. The other thing is, when it comes to the RV park, when I worked in the city of Daytona, we owned a 36-hole golf course. And we had a developer come and wanted to lease 18 holes to put a high-end RV park. And high-end was the motor coaches, nothing else. And the reason being because our golf course was in close proximity to the speedway. So when they have the turkey races, Daytona 500, and all the other races, people from the surrounding areas would come, rent a space, pricey, and the developer would also provide storage facilities for them to park their cars, if they tow them, and other amenities that they couldn't fit inside the motor coach. And of course, the city turned it down for various reasons. One, we didn't think it was the proper use for the golf course property, and two, the traffic. If anybody has never been on Nova Road or Ridgewood Drive, which is US 1, it's bumper to bumper, regardless of what the trips say and the traffic study. I mean, you can look at the vehicles and know there's a problem. And then if you get an accident and the road gets closed, nobody knows the detours. So I read all the oppositions, and of course, I'm a believer that, if you have enough people opposed to it, you need to take a hard look at it. But I think my conclusion overall, even regardless of what I heard today, is that it does not meet the intent of the rural settlement areas. Now, what should go there? I don't know. That's up for another developer to come in and talk to the county to get some acceptability, and hopefully the residents would get input relative to that. So I don't think we're here to determine what the future use looks like, whether it's 1 unit per acre, 2 units per acre, whatever. What's before us is, do we look at the special exception relative to what they're presenting to us? And the second question is, does it meet the intent of the rural settlement areas? I don't think it does.
All right. Commissioner Shakespeare, do you have any additional thoughts you'd like to add before I make a motion?
The only thing that just kept tugging at me, and I definitely agree with Commissioner, what keeps tugging at me is the fact that there's a landfill there, and what other options were there, and she did mention what they were, so. And I totally, I empathize with the current homeowners and what they're not being unreasonable, they're just saying that's just a bit much, so that's the only thing. So, no, that's gonna be a tough one.
All right. In case number SE 2408065, I move for denial of the special exception and variances.
I second that.
All right, motion from the chair for denial and a second by Commissioner Velez. All those in favor of denial, please vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, it is almost 10 minutes after 7. How many cases do we have for next month?
Next month, we have 12 cases. 2 of those are special exceptions. Additionally, there's been 2 cases, one board called case, Sorensen Construction, that was the house with the ADU and the 2 front doors with the hallway in between them. That's scheduled for September 10th. And then from the August 1st docket, the Marabu Restaurant, the 2 cop, they have appealed the denial. And so we're working on scheduling them. I believe their hearing is going to be the first Tuesday in October. And then I don't know if you've heard, but Orange Code and Vision 2050 have been, paused to work through some additional concerns until next spring. So once we have a final document, then we will be scheduling a work session with the board so that we can educate you on any changes that are being proposed.
All right, well, if there's no further business to be taken up before the board, then we are adjourned.
So